Many of us are interested in the question of what persimmon is good for. For what health problems is persimmon really useful? And how much persimmon can you eat per day without harming your health? We are going to answer all these questions right now. In addition, we will tell you how to use persimmon for medicinal purposes. So be careful and do not miss all the most important and interesting things. Who doesn't like persimmon? Because it has an unusually pleasant taste, tender pulp with light notes of tartness. But this is not all its advantages. The berry is rich in vitamins, useful minerals, microelements, and many other nutrients. By the way, in China, Japan, Nepal, northern India, and Korea, for about 2,000 years it has been grown and traditionally used to treat various diseases. Eastern persimmon is one of the most ancient and widespread types of this plant in Tibetan medicine, which, among many characteristics, always takes into account the cold and warm qualities of products and their division into yin and yang groups. And here persimmon. It is classified as a young A product, which means that the product has a warming and active effect. In addition, it has the ability to balance the yin principle and prevent the accumulation of mucus and fat, and therefore the development of cardiovascular and oncological diseases. The main value of persimmon is the presence of a large number of antioxidants, one of which is beta-carotene, which is a precursor of vitamin A. It is contained in persimmon more than in carrots, peppers, or pumpkin. If you eat a fruit weighing about 150 grams, you will get up to 20% of the daily requirement of this substance. First of all, vitamin A is important for the renewal of the body. In addition, beta-carotene fights free radicals, thereby protecting cells from destruction, which slows down the aging process. Persimmon, thanks to naphthalene, has a well-defined relaxing effect that reduces irritability and anxiety. Hypnodance is much faster and easier. People sleep longer and more soundly. Sudden awakenings occur. Thus, including persimmon in the diet is really effective for people suffering from insomnia. How does persimmon affect blood vessels? It should be noted that persimmon contains a large amount of vitamin C in combination with B vitamins. It activates the immune system, which increases the body's resistance to viral and bacterial infections. In addition, ascorbic acid in combination with vitamin P, which is also present in persimmon in the required quantities, has a beneficial effect on the condition of blood vessels. This helps improve blood flow and serves as an excellent prevention of atherosclerosis. That is why persimmon is recommended to include in your diet for those who are at risk of cardiovascular diseases. The microelement composition of persimmon is diverse. It contains potassium, which removes excess water from the body. It is useful to remember this for people prone to high blood pressure. Another valuable microelement is magnesium. This substance normalizes the functioning of the heart muscle, has a beneficial effect on the state of the nervous system, and improves the absorption of other nutrients. Thanks to magnesium, sodium salts are removed from the body, which reduces the likelihood of kidney stones. In what cases is persimmon useful, and why is persimmon often prescribed for? This berry contains a lot of iron, which is also well absorbed, and it also contains iodine, which is beneficial for the normal functioning of the thyroid gland. By the way, this microelement is rarely found in plant-based foods. Seaweed holds the record for its content, but unfortunately, it is not to everyone's taste. How hummus affects the intestines. Eating persimmon stimulates bowel function. When consumed in moderation, persimmon normalizes stool, but this rule applies only to ripe fruits. Otherwise, it can cause the opposite effect, particularly in those who suffer from constant constipation. The astringent properties of persimmon, when consumed in excess, which are associated with the content of tannins, can lead to bloating, stomach pain, and constipation. Can you eat persimmons if you have diabetes? Persimmon fruits contain a large amount of carbohydrates, 18.5 grams per 100 grams of product, with 25% of this amount coming from glucose and fructose. The glycemic index is equal to N units. Therefore, people with diabetes need to accurately determine their consumption rate to avoid complications. What amount of persimmon is allowed per day? When including persimmon in your diet, you must take into account the total amount of consumed simple sugars. It should be noted that the average fruit weighs about 250-300 grams. On average, Its calorie content ranges from 150 to 220 kilocalories. With a varied diet, it is advisable to consume on average no more than DT pieces per week. If we talk about smaller fruits, one persimmon per day. By the way, fresh persimmon is the most useful, since it contains the most valuable substances. Eating one persimmon per day is not harmful, and even more, the most useful substances are contained in fresh persimmon. Ripe persimmons combine well with cottage cheese, yogurt, kefir, and other fermented milk products, and not very much with milk. It is better to separate persimmon from the main meal by taking a break of at least 30 minutes. How to use medicinal properties. Persimmons in folk medicine for the treatment of chronic diarrhea. You need to take a ripe persimmon and cut it into small pieces that need to be placed in a container and pour 100 milliliters of hot water. Close the lid tightly and insist for 30 minutes. The infusion should be consumed in a cooled form, half a glass every 4 hours. For urinary incontinence, the stalks of persimmon fruits must be crushed, and the resulting raw material, 1 tablespoon, pour boiling water to milliliters and boil for 10 minutes. Then insist for another hour under the lid. The remedy is taken 60 to 70 milliliters twice a day for hypertension. Use a blender to bring 1 ripe persimmon to a jelly-like mass. Then add chopped ginger root, which you need to take a quarter of the volume of persimmon. Add a few drops of lemon juice to improve the taste. You can add honey if desired. The mixture is taken 3 times a day, 10 milliliters of persimmon. It is widely used in cosmetology, where it becomes the basis for natural nourishing creams and lotions. To prepare a cleansing lotion, the pulp of 1 fruit is poured with 200 milliliters of vodka and 1 teaspoon of lemon juice, tightly closed with a lid and infused for a week in a dark place. A paper napkin is soaked in this lotion and applied to the face for 10 to 15 minutes. Like any product, persimmon has a number of contraindications. The high content of tannin in persimmon, which is especially characteristic of unripe berries, and the large amount of plant fiber make it possible to consider this berry dangerous for people with intestinal adhesions and people who have recently undergone surgery on the abdominal organs. Another danger from eating persimmon is associated with the presence of iodine in the berries. If there is an excessive intake of iodine into the body, for example, during self-medication, and with an overdose of iodine-containing drugs, chronic inflammation and dysfunction of the thyroid gland can occur. Friends, today we have prepared for you the most important points about the benefits and harms of persimmon. If you found the video useful, we would be very grateful if you share the video on social networks. We would also like to remind you that we highly value your comments. Write your opinion about